Okay, hello and welcome. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Welcome to this morning where we are going to be talking about how to actually make change happen sustainably over the long term. It is not the act of wanting something different or desiring that actually gets us the changes that we need to be able to go through in order to become somebody different than we are today. There's a saying that goes, if you change, the world around you will change. If you change, the world around you will change. That is absolutely true. But how do we change? Most people don't change until the change of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change. Oftentimes, that's rock bottom. Oftentimes, that's being on the brink of losing your job. Oftentimes, that's fill in the blank. It can be some very extreme circumstances that actually get people to the point that they are able to shift their behavior to get different results. How do you do that otherwise? Identity-based change. Think about that. Identity-based change. We only act within the identity that we see of ourselves. So who you think you are is who you are, the thoughts that produce the actions that get you a certain result. So if you're thinking about who you are and who you're becoming, this is just a series of repeated decisions over and over and over again, subconsciously. So subconsciously meaning not at the surface, right? Think about your brain as you've got the top of your brain, you've got underneath everything that happens behind the scenes. Well, that behind the scene voice is actually the voice that has a greater power over the behaviors that we engage in. So behavior actually follows identity. You have to then think about consciously, who do you want to become and who are you? Because then once you've decided that intentionally and consciously, then the actions that follow through actually become a lot easier. So as you're wanting to go through and develop the mindfulness that's needed throughout the day, the ability to be here now, and become essentially the person who you're wanting to become, a filter to view through life through would be, what would my next level of my current self do right now? So every time we do something, it's as if you're sort of casting a vote for the future version of yourself that you want to be. And these are single keystone acts, and keystone being something that, like a keystone habit, something, if you do it, it has the trickle effect and ability to impact not just one thing. Exercise is a great example. You don't just exercise. You exercise and it's great for mental health. It's great for your physical health. It's great for your social health. It's great for the fact that you have prioritized yourself. You've casted that one vote, right? That one keystone vote, or the keystone behavior, vote for the keystone behavior that is going to actually improve so many other, right? Making it a keystone habits, areas of your life. So when you're trying to think it into reality, whatever this future reality is that you're trying to create, craft, and create, you have to just kind of get really honest where you currently are. I think one of the best strategies to really observe your behavior is to just literally do that. Observe your behavior with compassion and grace. You have to remember there's 8 billion people on the planet, and we were designed to survive. We biologically are ingrained to survive. So there are so many things that we as human beings do. We're a wee bit lazy and can be because our brain is designed to preserve calories to keep us alive. We live in a very different society than what our ancestors have evolved in. At the same time, our brain hasn't really evolved much past those early stages. And so we carry a lot of that into today's world. Well, today's world, we're being hit by emails, by messages, all these things at different times. And it's like the stress response goes off as if we've seen a tiger. So we're getting pings in the morning, first thing before we've done our mindfulness session together, which a strategy is put on affirmations. This morning I've got sales affirmations on, right? So again, programming those thoughts constantly into our brain of what we actually want to think versus the thoughts that come up automatically as a tool to be able to help us stay focused. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if we want to step into a different version of ourselves, we have to ask ourselves, what would that version of myself do? What would my next level of myself do now? Because that version of yourself is going to behave differently than the current version of this self. Is either bad? No. What is bad? Are some of the behaviors that we do not aligned with potential results we want? Absolutely. Does that make us a bad person? No. Not necessarily. Not unless the behaviors are, impacting other people negatively. Then we want to look at that. So, Muhammad Ali called himself the greatest years before the belt arrived. He built his identity first and let the record catch up. So, you want to be very intentional. And people do this all the time. You hear this all the time. But it's really truthful. You want to be very intentional to craft the version of yourself that you want to become. So I recommend first, for 1 week, I have the Empowered Day Planner. You can use it as a tool. DM me for it, the link to it. You can use a piece of paper. You can use, it's called Fuck Your Mood, Follow Your Plan, Layla Hermosi sticker on my goals. You could write it in your goals, whatever, a journal, anything that you can get your conscious thoughts on, or just get your thoughts down in, and write your behaviors. What do you do the first thing when you wake up? Write it all out in hindsight, right? Sit down for your cup of coffee and be like, what did I do this morning? Am I aligned with that? Is my future self aligned with those behaviors? Last week, I only went live on Monday. The other days, I was actually quite unwell. From Monday until Friday, Saturday, I was basically nauseous. I think I got some kind of bug. I did not get up in the morning. Did I love that? No. Did I feel like my best self? Never in those days. I also didn't feel well. But the trickle effect of the not feeling well was, I was like, oh, I'm not doing these lives. I actually felt like my behaviors were out of alignment with this version of myself that I'm crafting and I'm becoming. It didn't feel good. Those were behaviors, sleeping in longer, even though mentally I was like, I need the sleep so I feel better. Mentally, I knew that I was shifting into past versions of myself. I'm a night walker. I love night walking. Is sleeping in till 7, 8 bad if you're up working and being productive late, walking, doing these things? No, it's actually not. There is such a thing as like the 5 a.m. club, let's get up, and that's what we're doing here. But if you've shifted your life and you're able to put in the same amount of hours, and not even hours, but be as productive, and by productive, it's the 80-20 law. So, you're working on 20% of the things that get 80% of the results. So if you're focused on that, you're being strategic. Is there a right time of the day? I think you got to dial into yourself. However, I'm a night person. I want to be a morning person. I'm also a morning person when I'm a morning person, but you don't get to be both a night and morning person. So you have to choose. So this last week, I had to become really conscious over the last couple of days where I was like, okay, we're doing this again. Like I liked that. I felt more alert. I felt more aligned with myself and my goals. And I was focused, and the productivity was exponentially greater. So it's okay to go forward and go backwards, because sometimes in the backwards, we see the clarity of how amazing what we were doing was. And then we go back to that. And everybody does it. 5 steps forward, 3 steps back. Now, if you don't, that's ideal. And if you shift your identity as someone who, the chances that your behavior falls in alignment is exponentially greater. So why wouldn't you want to try to focus on what am I doing now? Get real conscious and clear about it. Very conscious and clear about what you're doing now, what's working and what's not. And then do that by writing out your behaviors throughout the day. Just track yourself for 1 week. What do you say you're going to do? What did you actually do? Where did you spend your time? That level of clarity doesn't always feel good, because we can't lie to ourselves, because data doesn't lie. And so since we can't lie to ourselves, and we're then becoming honest with ourselves, we can actually see in real time, ooh, this is what I did do. This is what I said I was going to do. Where can I improve? Right? We're always wanting as humans to improve, because that's progress. We evolve. That's the whole idea behind growth. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about what version of yourself do you want to become, and actually spend a few moments journaling that version. And I'm going to do it as well. So share yours. Oh, excuse me. So when we leave this, I want you to grab that journal, grab something, and remember that every action you take is a vote for the type of the person that you wish to become. James Clear. So thinking about your future self, whether it's visualizing, that's a strategy, or writing it out, what would be one thing that you could do? First, craft the version of yourself, and then focus on one thing at a time this week. What's one thing that the future version of yourself that you would want to grow into would do differently? Maybe it's 10. Write those out, but circle one. No more than 3 at a time. So what is the thing that the future version of yourself would do differently? How would you feel once you did that differently? Would you feel more focused? Would you feel more energized? Would you feel more consistent? Would you feel more optimized? How would you feel? Would you have more energy? Would you feel more vibrant? Last week, wasn't feeling well, was sleeping in, I was off. I was not feeling vibrant. I know I have this vibrancy. I've been able to tap into it now really consistently for years. I didn't even know that people had that state until I started living in that state. Then anything that isn't that state, it really, a lot of red alarms go off, red flags go off, because I don't like that. So I know that there are certain things that I can do that I can shift back into this version to then continue to push myself into levels that go higher and higher. Everyone's different. What do those look like for you? You got to be very intentional. So again, I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye. I want you to grab that planner. I want you to spend, or your journal, just spend a few minutes crafting that version of yourself. Be intentional, because the future you will thank you for the consciousness that you're giving now. Because if you can consciously visualize, conceptualize, and see yourself acting and behaving, at first it starts with thought. So if you can see it and believe it, the thoughts that are naturally going to come up are going to be the thoughts that you're going to program through affirmations. I sat down yesterday and I wrote out for swimming 80 affirmations. So maybe I'll meet you live again after I've done that, and we can do a check-in on what was that strategy like. And that's just doing laps to the thoughts that I want to be thinking. It becomes part of the conscious when you are spending time really curating the subconscious. So remember, my friends, your life is your journey, your choice. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams and live the life you imagine. You've got this.